Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to former First Lady 𝗖𝗘𝗧𝗀𝗧 𝗏𝗏, who was an advocate for peace, a champion of Habitat for Humanity, served Georgia's houseless population, and a strong supporter of mental health care for those battling substance abuse. May we all bow our heads for a moment to honor her with this moment of silence. Together, we mourn the tragic loss of 1,200 Israelis killed since October 7th. Together, we also mourn the 12,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza. The situation is so dire, the New York Times calls Gaza a, quote, graveyard for children. Take a moment to picture that. We're here today so we can finally admit it's not complicated. Our U.S. senators and congressional representatives should heed the demand of their constituents and call for a ceasefire now. We've been told that the story and history of Palestine and Israel is too complex for us to understand, that we should be quiet and not get involved. But it's too late. We are already involved to the tune of $3.8 billion per year. That's how much U.S. taxpayers are giving to support Israel's military. That equates to $96 million coming from the state of Georgia. Meanwhile, we have military veterans in our own country who are denied their disability payments. Our teachers work in underfunded and overpopulated schools with limited resources. Families sit in long lines of cars, queuing up at food drives, praying their children will have a meal this holiday season. In our state, where less than 1% of contracts go to Black, Latino, and women business owners from the state, we should be using federal funds to help build up Georgia's economy. It's time we uncomplicate this and find out exactly what we're paying for. In Georgia, $96 million could provide over 11,000 families with affordable housing for a year. Houseless veterans could move from the streets in short-term motels and finally find rest on beds in their own homes. Families would not have to brave the cold of winter on the streets and in the forests of Georgia. But instead of using our tax dollars to invest in our communities, we are financial investors in Israel's bombing campaign that 3 weeks ago left nearly half the homes in Gaza destroyed. So we're leaving Georgia's families houseless and doing the same to Palestinian families, and the money to do it is coming from your pockets. It's not complicated to know that we have no business leaving people houseless in Georgia or Gaza. And all it takes to put a stop to it, it's a simple phrase: ceasefire now. Let's say it together. Ceasefire now. See, that wasn't so hard to say. But some of our elected officials act like ceasefire now are dirty words. 2.5 years ago, Senator John Ossoff led 29 senators in urging an immediate ceasefire in Palestine and Israel to, quote, prevent the further loss of life and further escalation of violence. 2.5 years later, he's calling for, quote, mercy for the innocent civilians in Gaza, but not a ceasefire. Ceasefire now. Let's say it together. Ceasefire now. Senator Ossoff, we are showing you how easy it is to say ceasefire now. You have said it in the past, and now your constituents are here asking you to say it again. With the money we give to fund Israel's military, 33,000 children in Georgia could have access to low-cost or free health care. In our state, where we have one of the highest black maternal mortality rates in the nation, the federal government could provide Georgians more funding for Medicaid. As we face a devastating number of hospital closings across our state due to a lack of resources, we could be building up our healthcare system in Georgia. But instead, we're giving Israel money to bomb hospitals. Let me ask you this. Has bombing hospitals brought any Israeli hostages home? Senator Raphael Warnock, pastor of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, has also been reluctant to say the words, ceasefire now. And it's a bit of a shock, because in 2018, when Senator Warnock was still only Reverend Warnock, he stood in the pulpit of his church and called it a Pentecostal moment when he declared, and I quote, "We saw the government of Israel shoot down unarmed Palestinian sisters and brothers like birds of prey. And I don't care who does it, it's wrong. It's wrong to shoot down God's children like they don't matter at all. And it's no more anti-Semitic for me to say that than it is anti-white for me to say Black Lives Matter. Palestinian lives matter." End quote. Those are Senator Raphael Warnock's own words. If you were led by the Holy Spirit to speak truth from the pulpit, you can certainly speak truth in politics. When you call for a ceasefire now, you will be joining more than 1,000 black faith leaders who are saying the same. You'll be joining the people here with us today, students and alumni of Morehouse and Spelman, and not just our Atlanta University Center family, but also students from Kennesaw State and members of Jewish Voice for Peace and Voices of Muslims. Say it with us, Morehouse brother, and we will say it with you. Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
The very least that we can do, after all the damage that's been wrought from our tax dollars, is to provide needed food and water to the people of Gaza. Our call is for a ceasefire, followed by the immediate delivery of humanitarian aid. Finally, all of us here understand there could be repercussions for speaking up for justice and for our communities. Our ancestors were hunted down by dogs. Today, we get doxxed. But we will not shy away from the truth. To our U.S. senators and congressional representatives, we are calling on you to live up to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s charge on our lives, that the time is always right to do what is right. When your constituents phone for a ceasefire now, please hear them out. When they visit your office to call for a ceasefire now, do not lock your doors. And to the constituents listening today, thank you. We encourage you to call your congressional representatives and your U.S. senators. Put them to the test to prove they are here to represent you, that they are who they claim to be when you voted them into office. For those of you who have been calling and sending emails, rest assured, your calls are working. Your unwavering belief in taking action for peace has given us 40 congressional representatives with their names added to the Ceasefire Now resolution. Among them, we recount Georgia's own Representative Hank Johnson, a proud graduate of Clark Atlanta University. We humbly ask you to call your congressional representatives and your U.S. Senator. Visit Jewish Voice for Peace's link at 𝗣𝗲𝗀.org/ActNowGaza. Again, that's 𝗣𝗲𝗀.org/ACT, ACT, now, N-O-W, Gaza, G-A-Z-A. It's not complicated to ask for peace. Keep calling Congress and tell them, for the sake of humanity, ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
Ceasefire now.
The message speaks for itself. Call your representatives, call your senators.